The first wave of innovation in Africa has led to inclusion in financial services, mobile and internet connectivity. But do you wonder what the next wave could look like? Well, I spoke about that with Wim van der Beek, partner at Goodwell Investments. Take a look. In the last decade or so, we've seen a lot of technological advancement in Africa. Just to help us understand, what should we be looking at next in terms of the next wave of technology development in this continent?
Okay. Yeah. So where we see the next wave of technology innovation going, and those are developments that we see happening already now, the early stages of that are happening now, is that a lot of the innovations will become very relevant for the people in Africa, for the majority markets, for the low-income segments that now have access to mobiles, have access to communication tools. They also have access to things like mobile payments, like M-Pesa here in Kenya. But it hasn't really changed the way that they live their lives or earn their income, and the way they spend their income. That is going to change in the next 5 years significantly because of all sorts of applications that are becoming available through use of modern technologies, are becoming much more affordable. In the same way as people have started to adopt mobile banking, now they will also adopt new ways of education, healthcare, of ways that they will generate income, ways that they will find jobs, whether it's day jobs or permanent jobs. All of those things are starting to shift.
How do we match the growth of this digital connectivity and the real benefits? Because I've seen people like World Bank come out and say digital connectivity is growing very fast, but digital dividends are not really growing as fast.
There, I think Africa is at a unique point in time, is able to grab the opportunities more than any continent because of the rapid growth of digital connections and because of its youth, because of the young age of the African population, which means that those generations are much more likely to be digital savvy much quicker than older continents. And so what you'll see happening now is that through the use of communication, which always comes first, when you have new technology that enables communication like a mobile phone, the first use case is communication, is just be in touch. That doesn't generate any wealth in itself, but it enables people to actually maintain social cohesion. The next stage is new ways of earning income and new ways of finding access to affordable products and services. And a good example is the affordable access now to solar energy, which is enabled by mobile connectivity. It's enabled by mobile payments. People can pay for their solar kit the same amount that they otherwise would be spending on kerosene, and you see rapid deployment now of those energy kits, which are just on demand. It's the same as a lot of those technologies that have been developed in developed countries are now becoming applicable in Africa, making life a lot more affordable, making better access to these kind of things like affordable energy.
And from where you sit, do you feel like African innovation is getting the attention it requires from the rest of the world? Do you feel they are getting that recognition?
That's a million-dollar question. It could always do with more recognition, but the fact that we're here at a conference that has 1,000 delegates from across the globe that are interested in the topic of how can we improve people's lives with business models is a good sign. And of course, Africa, considering its size and considering its potential wealth, is still not receiving the attention that it deserves. I think what you see happening on the ground in Africa is the innovation that is happening is tremendous. It's very much still below the radar of larger international organizations. If you realize that there are some 98 innovation and tech hubs across Africa, which is an enormous number. And the innovation that's coming out of these hubs and the young entrepreneurs that are coming up with new ideas and really the quality of those entrepreneurs is really in the last few years really gone up significantly. So I think those that haven't spotted it yet outside Africa, they will spot it. Sooner or later they will notice it because it will become so big. In the same way as mobile payments, now outside Africa people also know that Africa is leading the way there. And so maybe in a few years when it's in health or in education or whatever, things where Africa traditionally has a bit of something to catch up on, now will catch up and actually jump forward. And from having a base that's very low, will jump forward with the use of innovation.
How best can we support the next step of innovation? Is it more research and more funding?
Funding is the biggest problem. The funding gap is huge. There is really insufficient funding for innovation in Africa, and there is this what is called a pioneer gap. So people that have a good idea and are able to start executing on it, they will find some way or the other, they find a little support network of family, friends, maybe it comes out of a university incubator or something where there's some support around it. That early stage, there is more or less sort of there are platforms and there are environments where you can find that support. But once it really starts to work and it needs to scale up to the next stage, the funding for that gap, for that stage is a huge gap. And only when the company is really very successful and profitable and working in a lot of countries, then funders will have no problem investing in it. But from that early seed stage to that later growth stage, that middle stage, there's a huge funding gap. And that's what we are trying to fill with our firm Goodwell Investments, to actually invest in those entrepreneurs that are able to take things to scale and improve people's lives with a proper business model.